Then we can start recording. Hello, Internet, if you are seeing this. So there's a movie which has united the Internet recently, sort of out of nowhere overnight, and it's a 2025 movie called Lesbian Space Princess. And the reason it's united the internet is because a whole bunch of different people sort of very spontaneously seem to have come together and decided that this is the worst movie in the entire universe, and that it is the moral duty of every right-thinking person to dunk on it as relentlessly as possible. Now, I have seen this particular pattern of thing before, and I have noticed that this is the sort of thing that has a tendency to happen a little bit more often to media which is openly queer. And I'm sure there's no reason for that. There wouldn't be a reason for that. There wouldn't be a reason like that. There wouldn't be a structural, systemic reason why something like that would happen. I can't imagine that there would be. That would be silly. That would be conspiratorial almost to talk about. But it did strike me that the hate brigade for this movie came completely out of nowhere, more than a year after it was released, for seemingly no reason. So I figured that in order to be informed about what the movie actually is and what the problems with it might actually be, it might be a good idea to watch it, which, you know, it's a radical idea in these dark and trying times, but seeing the thing and then forming an opinion about it is sometimes a good practice. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. You're not going to do it on my screen because it's a copyrighted piece of work, so I can't really just, show it to you. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your own copy of the movie on your own computer, which you have obtained completely legitimately, I am sure. And I'm going to give you a countdown, and I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, go, and then we'll go together, play together. And then when I feel like I have something to say or I want to chat about a thing that just happened, I'll say 3, 2, 1. Pause, and we'll pause together, and in that way we'll stay in sync. We'll watch the movie together and have a little conversation about it. And I have no idea whether there's going to be a lot to say about this thing, or whether it's just going to turn out to be kind of mediocre with not a lot to say about it, but I'm going to give you a little bit of context about the movie first. This is not entirely an independent production, but it's a fairly small animation production made by a first-time director with a fairly small crew of animators, working, I believe, in Toon Boom, financed in Australia by a few media companies over there. It was eventually acquired by Netflix and put up on Netflix, and I think maybe that was the trigger for people noticing the movie and deciding that it was worth hating on. And there's a whole bunch of porridge-brained nonsense out there about, like, yeah, Netflix funded the woke Lesbian Space Princess. But they did not fund it. They just acquired the rights to distribute it. And some bullshit about how they made the Lesbian Space Princess movie to replace the beloved children's classic Captain Underpants. And no, Captain Underpants is just streaming on Peacock now because the people who own the IP also own the Peacock streaming service, and so they put their own thing on their own streaming service and took it away from Netflix. There's a whole bunch of that nonsense going around, which I don't really want to have to field in the comments, so let's just get it out of the way now. The movie was also pretty damn well loved by critics upon release. It made the rounds on the festival circuit before it saw any kind of international distribution, and generally on the festival circuit, it seems to have had pretty warm reception. And didn't really seem to have a huge negative audience reception until it saw that Netflix release either. So that's some of the context we might want to take with us as we head into this movie. And that's probably enough preamble for now. So if you want to watch a more convenient version of this reaction, where you don't have to maybe mess around so much with the pause and play thing, you can become a member of the channel, and there's access to convenient versions of my reactions over there if you want to, but you don't have to. It's completely fine. Let's, in fact, just get into it. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's see how many logos we get ahead of it, because that's one of the things about especially movies that are funded outside of the American studio system. Often there's like a ton of logos before them because they get funding from, they have to get funding from like 5 million places. Flow, which won the Oscar for the best animated movie last year, I think, had like 5.5 full minutes of just logos showing up before the movie because they had gotten funding from so many different sources that they had to credit. And that's how independent animation production tends to work outside of the American studio system is, well, it works like this. It's logo after logo after logo. because the only way to obtain the kind of money you need for an animation production in anything like a feature film scale is you have to get grants and grants and grants and like tons and tons of funding from a billion different sources, all of whom have to be credited. Clitopolis, okay. Hmm. 3, 2, 1, pause. Okay. So there's one thing that's worth talking about already, which they are bringing up as a piece of imagery here. And that's this thing. So this battle axe here is a labri, or a labris, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's just a battle axe, like from ancient times. But what it means in terms of symbology is that in the 1970s, especially, it was adopted as a symbol of feminist organizing across much of, especially the Western feminist sphere. And it was used on a lot of flags and a lot of symbols and a lot of logos and things like that. And in more recent times, because it's sort of associated with 1970s feminism and to some extent with radical feminism, it has become associated with like sort of modern, rather reactionary radical feminists. The people who are often also known as TERFs, trans-exclusive radical feminists, are very fond of using this symbol because they are very fond of claiming that all of feminist history leads up to their idiotic theory about how trans women aren't real women and they're actually men in disguise who are dangerous predators, like all of that porridge-brained nonsense that these dipshits go around with. As far as I know, this movie made a conscious decision to include the labris and the labri as part of their imagery, specifically from the thought that, like, well, TERFs shouldn't get to have that because this is part of feminist history and it's not just theirs to have and take and stick with, but it's the kind of thing that makes a lot of people, especially trans people, uncomfortable because this symbol does tend to show up in the profile pictures and in the organizational logos of people who are actively working against, the human rights of trans people. So that I think has set off a bunch of people because this thing, like, you see that thing, and if you know something about like the nature of like feminist organizing, that it sets off a few alarm bells in your head when that comes in. Counter to that, though, I do believe that one of these two characters, one of the lesbian space princess's moms, is transgender explicitly, and as far as I can tell, they're, at least insofar as the creators have articulated their intent, they are very much trans-inclusive. Like, they don't believe in TERF bullshit and have said as much in interviews. Whether or not they're able to make that clear in the film, I suppose we shall have to see. And since we're paused anyway, art style. So it's ugly. Let's put it that way. It's an ugly movie, but it's ugly in the way that we often see in modern animation, especially modern animation aimed at teens and adults. It's ugly in that sort of Rick and Morty, Big Mouth, BoJack Horseman. It's that specific kind of like lean Claire, minimal line work, generally sort of very, in this case, rubber hose style, very simplistic character designs. That has a lot of popularity in modern animation, and there's a few reasons for that. There's a stylistic movement of that comes out of Adult Swim and out of Cartoon Network, and like has a long sort of history that leads up to this point. But it's also partly, to my knowledge, because if you are working in animation, you're working something like Toon Boom, or if you're working with rigged puppet animation and things like that, sometimes having characters that are rigged in ways that approach this kind of aesthetic, it just makes things a little bit easier. Sometimes it can make it easier to animate, it can make it cheaper to animate, so it has gained popularity for that reason. It's a very simplistic style. It doesn't require you necessarily to animate things with like a fully three-dimensional level of sakuga at all times, so it can be cheaper to animate things in this style. It also has an association with the online queer communities. It's very, like, people would probably describe some of this as like Tumblr-ish in its art style. And it also has an association with these things, which seems to be part of the reason why they chose it. One thing that interests me is the line work is deliberately blue, which is an interesting color choice to use on your line work, because it creates kind of a contrast, certainly with the skin colors of the characters. You can see it having a certain contrast with like the pink hair. It shows up very nicely against the black hair, though. Maybe that's part of the reason why they did it. It's an interesting choice. I wonder how consistent it's going to be. I wonder if the outline color is going to mean anything over the course of the film. Curious. Let's see how it progresses. 3, 2, 1, go. I could gather. Are they going to cut to a joke, or are they just... Ah, they're just sticking with it. Nice. Three, two, one, pause. Yeah, it's like... I mean, this is like, yeah, lesbian breakups can be like that sometimes. I've seen that can happen, especially in their younger years. Like, I've seen it happen. So it does feel like it's coming from like an authentic place of sort of making fun of itself. But it's definitely leaning on the cringe, right? It's leaning on the awkward, and that's, I guess, part of the outside is leaning on the awkward. It's leaning on the ugly. It's leaning on the loser bits of being a teenager. It is not cool. No part of this is cool. And that does seem to be very intentional. And there is something interesting happening here in terms of what the camera is doing, right? As we're here in the shot reverse shot, right? Characters are fairly close together. They're both in like this medium close-up. And then as the scene progresses, now she's further away. And now she's further away. Right? Their relative position to each other hasn't changed. But she's further away. And now she's really far away. To the point that the whole space is being distorted to show just how far away she is. Sort of signifying just the way that the conversation is going. So there's clearly some thoughtful storyboarding happening here. Where they're trying to like use the medium. And I do appreciate that. 3, 2, 1, go. Repeat the joke. Do it again. It definitely has the energy of like a 2010s webcomic. Yep. Yeah, it does. It very much has the energy of a 2010s webcomic. Of course it is. Yeah, the pacing could definitely be a little snappier. Oh, that literally is just a screenshot of the yeah. Huh, I didn't need to even need to give the history lesson there. They're doing it for me. You can see the budget here as well, right? Like they're holding a lot on fairly still frames where not much is happening, and they're padding the runtime with that, which is like very emblematic of you're trying to do something at a feature film length, and you're trying to do it on an indie animation budget. Those are the kinds of things that you do to try and make it stretch. It's very like you'll recognize it from cheap anime, right? The way that cheap anime likes to hold on frames where nothing is happening. Interesting 3D effect that they're doing here. And also fully, as Chad is saying, fully just doing the Twilight thing. Unironically, which I think is kind of funny, honestly. That lady is gonna bleed. Okay, no, she didn't bleed out. Oh, well, okay. Here comes the blood. Oh, well, now we know why the chuds are angry. God, they're a bunch. They are a bunch of redditors. 3, 2, 1. Pause. Definitely webcomic energy. Good lord, webcomic energy. Oh, now we know why the chuds are mad. Straight white malians. That's a good pun, I will say. Yeah, no fat chicks. There's a tank. Rise and grind. Air hockey table. Joker Funko Pop, of course. Anime body pillow. Amok swag. Jesus fucking Christ. Warning, no stupid people beyond this point. Excuses are tools of the incompetent. You mad? All logic, no feelings. All hell the binary. Working in IT, I may look calm, but in my head I've killed you 5 times. That is, yeah, no, they got him. They got him. I knew this type of guy. Grew up with this type of. Oh my fucking god! Grew up with this type of guy. It's not subtle. It's not exactly. It's not exactly the world's most sophisticated satire, but it's true. It is an accurate depiction of a specific kind of dude. Oh man, oh, I'm so fucking glad I'm not in my 20s anymore. 3, 2, 1, go. If I had one meme, of course. Being very literal about the person's insecurities there, huh? No, hang on. I need to see that. 3, 2, 1, pause. What are you torrenting there? You taught me why hurricanes are named after people. Oh my god. It is rare, I will say. Like, we really don't get a lot of media, period, where the protagonist is just straight up a loser girl failure. Like, we don't get a lot of that. That is fairly rare, right? Like, if we get a female protagonist who's any kind of girl failure, she's still like turbo hot and competent in some way or something. Like, a straight up pathetic loser girl failure protagonist is a rare thing in media. Yet a lot of loser boy failure protagonists, like, that's all the time everywhere. Not so many girl failures. And I can see why a lot of people would feel, like, just because they're not used to it, but a lot of people also feel uncomfortable with it. They feel uncomfortable about it in various ways, which, you know. Raiders of the Lost Dyke, Groundhog Gay, Singing in the Rainbow, The Slatrix, American Pie, Lord of the Twinks. Well, at least she's seeding. You know, that's good praxis. She's seeding. She's seeding the torrents. That's something. Literally Q-tor. Jesus Christ. Silly. Very silly. Anyway. 3, 2, 1, go. Ah. That's a horrible thing to say about someone on the internet. No bullying unless it's Syra. No self-promo. Again, it does seem like it comes from a pretty authentic place. Authentic doesn't mean good. Doesn't mean compelling, but... S Club 17. Jesus Christ. I will say, that is not an entirely inaccurate depiction of aro and ace phobia within the queer community. Like, that attitude I have encountered before. I kind of like that transition. Like, transforming the eye into the thing she's looking at. Visually, that's quite clever. right, because problematic ship, because it's a problematic relationship that she's trying to. Yeah, okay, I get it. I get it. I get the joke. So it's a pretty solid setup for like a coming of age story, right? Like structurally speaking. She's leaving her bubble, right? Like she's pushing out of her comfort zone, but why is she doing it? Well, you're right. Yeah, no, yeah, bit of racism. Sure, why not? Indeed. They do say that in German. I can confirm that as a European. Ah, the deepest horror of space. Ed Sheeran clones. It definitely has a pacing problem, this movie, right? Like where it stays way too long on every joke. Oh man, if you've ever had to sit through if you've ever listened to one of the man podcasts, if you have ever seen them give their presentations at their little conferences, no, this is what it is. This is what it, like if you've ever seen recordings of like a fucking pickup artist seminar or whatever, that's correct. This is entirely accurate. That doesn't make it particularly funny or pleasant to watch, but it is accurate. Right. See, because they don't listen to women. It's also very Australian in its humor style. Right. Easy way or hard way. Yeah, again, the jokes are all paper thin here. It's like, it's not exactly Captain Subtlety over here. I quite like the refractive effect they've got on the dome of the ship there. That's quite well animated. Yeah, you definitely can't say that anymore. Don't say that. That's a bad word. Ooh, 3, 2, 1, pause. That's some genuinely quite beautiful background art there, actually. I do wonder about the production circumstances of this movie. Because, like, the pacing definitely feels like a first pass issue, right? Like the pacing of when they cut from a joke, right? Like when they proceed from a bit to the next thing, it's always like a little sluggish. It's always like hanging for 1 second too long. And that's the kind of thing that feels like, okay, that needs just another pass in editing, right? Like that doesn't feel like it's necessarily a problem with the script or the storyboard. It just feels like someone in editing should have taken another pass at it and like sped the changes up a little bit. And I do wonder, because since it is an independent production, and I wonder about the production conditions of it, I wonder how it was produced and put together. Because there's definitely inconsistencies, right? Because some of the background art, like especially in this scene here, right? It's very, very flat, right? Like there's very little volume to it. You have these very flat characters and very flat objects against a background that has basically no depth to it, right? Like, and that's very sort of Family Guy, for camera sitcom, animated sitcom kind of vibe, right? Like we have these very flat spaces that really aren't created with a lot of volume or interiority. And that's pretty consistent. But then we get to the man cave, and between the lighting and the way that it's laid out, like all of a sudden now the space is at times much more voluminous. And then now we get to space, and we get, like, even just the space cockpit has a lot more of a sense of, like, a volume space to it. And then we get here, and it's like, shit, this... Like, the scale is maybe not 100% consistent across the whole field, but now all of a sudden, like, oh shit, this looks like a credible space background. And it's the sort of things that make me wonder, like, because something an inexperienced first-time production might do is make the movie chronologically, right? Like, that's something that can sometimes happen. I don't think so. It's a rare mistake to make. But it does feel a little bit like watching through it as it goes on, you can kind of see places where the production is much more competent, and then spaces where it feels much more inexperienced. And this is one of those that's like, oh shit, that's a substantially higher quality environment art than everywhere else in the movie. Interesting. I wonder about that, because, like, that's the other thing when we talk about anime, for example, right? Anime often has that thing where, like, the way that productions tend to be laid out, because anime is working on such horrible... Peter Cullen just died? What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? First Dolly, then Tim Curry. Turns out a couple of weeks ago, Yu Yu Kusaya also died. I'm mispronouncing her name, but the artist... Peter Cullen died? Fucking hell. Sorry, I need to Google this. Fucking Optimus Prime. Fucking Optimus Prime died. Jesus Christ. The hell? Passed away peacefully surrounded by his loving family. Well, I mean, that's a blessing, I suppose. You don't know how many voice acting roles. Yeah, he was Eeyore, for one thing. He did so much acting and voice acting. He's an amazingly prolific actor. But people know him most as Optimus Prime, obviously, but just like... God, Peter Cullen was in everything, Jesus. What the fuck is happening right now? They're all old, right? Like, it's not like it's weird for old people to pass, but... God, it's like 2016 all over again. Anyway, let's get back to this, I guess. 3, 2, 1, go. Nicely drawn skeletons, too. Yeah, again, this whole space is, like, much nicer rendered. Those skeletons are really well drawn. Again, holding on a joke too long. Ooh, that was quite nicely animated. Like that little shot from above and then down to the shoes, that was very well animated. Yeah. Again, that's not inauthentic to a certain kind of lesbian girl failure. If the person I'm talking about watches this video, they'll know that I'm talking about them. Apparently, I also managed to clock a few people in chat. Yeah, hello, lesbians. Not very subtle with the imagery in the background there either. Oh, dear. That never ends well. It's almost like it's a metaphor for your negative self-talk or something. I kind of like her. She's fun. Yeah, resolving again, it's very webcomic, right? Resolving a dramatic plot point with a joke rather than with character progression. Yeah, it's a fate worse than death. 3, 2, 1, pause. I will say, yes, absolutely. Like, there's a certain kind of male nerd who's a little too eager to explain the rules of magic to you, and they can be very difficult to deal with. There's also a certain kind of lesbian nerd who's too interested in explaining all the rules of their favorite tabletop and card games to you. And they are delightful, all of them. I love every single one of them. I don't have a bad word to say about them. I would never. Uh, just saying, that's not necessarily a gender exclusive thing. When big titty sorceress enter the battlefield, Huck, huge titty creature in opponent's hands are revealed. Did I forget to put a marker down? God damn it. Okay. Yeah, nerdy trans lesbians are like 70% of my TTRPG friends. This is true. It's also, it should be said, a lot of the time, that nerdy guy who's way too eager to explain the rules of a board game or a TTRPG to you, like, check back in on them in 4 or 5 years and it's going to be a nerdy girl who's too eager to, like, it's, like, sometimes it's just, like, sometimes you just need to give them a minute, right? And, like, at that point, they'll usually form a polycule. Like, a polycule will sort of spontaneously form around them. And then they always have people for board game night. Where is my polycule spontaneously form? I don't know. Like, the science and magic of how that happens is inscrutable. 3, 2, 1, go. I'll say. Again, very flat backgrounds. Oh, hey, the Progress Pride flag. That's nice to see. I think the word for this movie is inconsistent. Like, if you wanted to sum it up, it's inconsistent. It definitely has good ideas in there. It's very stream of consciousness. Yes, GG Freak. I think that's accurate. Three, two, one, pause. There was a good joke. That one I liked. Because it was a little bit subtle, right? I'm pretty good at magic. I'd love to see a trick. No, you wouldn't. Immediately looks up like, yeah, please, 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 please. This is all I'm good at. It's the only thing Yeah, I would. Boom. Right. Like, that was good because you could see it in the character acting, right? You can see it in the character acting that her magic autism instantly overcomes her insecurity, right? Like, that was a well-paced joke. That was a well-told joke. And I will say, it's also, again, talking about, like, the girl failure as a character, it is authentic to a kind of person who, like our poor protagonist here, is, like, defined by negative self-talk and self-hate, right? And inferiority complex, that they respond to literally any positive reinforcement by attaching themselves, right? That she falls in love kind of instantly with someone who offers her any kind of positive attention. Because that's how she got into the relationship with Kiki, right? Kiki just kind of showed up and said, hey, and that was it for Syra, right? Like, she jumped in bed with her immediately because she's so desperate for that positive attention. And that's, like, again, that's authentic to, like, not specifically lesbians, that's authentic to a certain kind of person. And it's not a flattering portrait. It's not a flattering portrait of that kind of a person. But it's authentic. It's true. Like, that is a thing that happens when you have very low self-esteem, when you are very stuck in self-hate, and you cannot find within yourself any source of self-love, any source of positive self-feeling. You will latch on to whatever comes along that will give you that, and you can get into some toxic relationships that way. Like, some real nasty ones. Ask me how I know. Skyen, yes, I know I'm easy, and that's okay. No, that's the thing. It's not the same as being easy. At least not in the sense of being casual, being slutty or whatever. Like, slutty brackets positive. It's a different thing. Like, it's not about being easy. It's about being essentially malnourished. It's like being a starving person seeing a morsel of food, right? It's not about being easy. It's about being a starving person who, like, sees something that will grant them a moment of sustenance. So, like, of course you go for it. Of course you go for it. Because it's like a good sense of self and self-feeling and self-love, these things are not optional to a human being. Like, we have to have a source of them, otherwise we die. So it's not about being easy. It's not a moral failure on anyone's part, right? Like, it's not, if this is a pathology that you have, a pattern that you follow, it's not because you're a bad person or because you're stupid. It's because you have an unmet need. And in order to survive, you try to find a source for the thing that you need, right? It's not a good or healthy survival strategy in the long run, but it's like, it's not like you're not doing it because you're stupid. You're doing it because you have an unmet need and you're trying to fill it, right? Sometimes literally fill it. And like, the thing isn't to, like, the cure for that isn't to not be slutty. The cure for that isn't to not fall in love easily. The cure for that is to love yourself, right? Like, have self-respect and care about your own needs when you're picking partners. And try and find someone who can, like, compliment you in a positive way. Which, like, might be what's happening here with Syra, right? Like, that she's found someone who's, like, not interested in just using her the way that Kiki pretty clearly was, but someone who's, like, who thinks she's actually kind of fun and cool and, like, provides something that she herself doesn't have. And that can be a more positive way to go. Again, if it has a quality, this movie, and I think it does, authenticity is, like, a real quality here. It feels like it comes from a real place and some very real experiences. The execution, inconsistent. But the heart is there. 3, 2, 1, go. Listen, I know at least a half dozen trans lesbians that would work on instantly. Only a half dozen. I think the other half dozen would need, like, 1 or 2 more tricks. Hi, Apollo. Hi, baby. What, little man? Hello, kitty cat. He wants to cuddle. The thing about the songs is, like, they are rarely well paced, but none of them have been, like, bad. They're all very melodic. They're just, like, feel unnecessary to the plot. Yeah, as we talked about, you latch on to things. Another joke that goes on rather too long. Again, unsubtle about the message, right? She becomes more herself when she takes off the thing that's tying her to this toxic relationship. Very pinky on the brain coded. Oh, hey, it's back. Oh, hey, message. That's a useful skill. It do be like that sometimes. Hi, Popo. Okay, that throne is kind of cunt, I will say. You know what? Fair point from Blade there. Ooh. That's kind of nice effects animation. I like the fisheye distortion here. Okay, that's interesting. Anyone watched Utena? 3, 2, 1, pause. Yeah, easy heel turn. So this seems to be the sequence that the movie is most excited about. And it's interesting. Again, Le Brise as a piece of symbology, right? As like a signifier, specifically a lesbian liberation struggle. And as a signifier of feminine power. Like, part of the shape language of it, to my memory, and I'm going off memory here, and I'm not an expert in, like, feminist organizing history. To my memory, part of the imagery it was meant to represent was, like, butterflies and sort of yonic imagery. And it has some relation to, like, the politics of things like pussy power, and the ways that that was articulated as a counterpoint to, like, sort of like the social obsession with the phallic Minoan goddess shit as well. Yeah. And it's interesting, like, what the movie posits is that the unlock, right? Like, the thing that unlocks this power for you is self-acceptance, right? And understanding of the traumas that come. In this instance, I would say with, like, living a girlhood, right? Living a queer girlhood, the trauma that comes from parental neglect. These are the things that unlock this power. It definitely runs the risk of being bioessentialist, right? In the sense of, if we connect this thing specifically to a specific biological part of the human body, it's like, what's the implication there for a person whose biology is different, right? I think you would have to read the movie in a little bit bad faith to sort of say that it's clearly intentionally trying to say only women with vaginas are real women, but it's imagery that allows for that interpretation, right? Like, it allows for it. And that is a valid side of criticism. Although I will note also that when it comes out, I mean, the imagery here isn't yonic, right? Like, it does seem to be trying to incorporate imagery that counters that. I wouldn't be the person to speak on how successful this is. Like, I'll leave that to, lesbians themselves, especially trans lesbians, would be the ones who have authority to speak here. I do think it's trying to articulate the idea that girlhood, that womanhood is like something that comes inherently from self-acceptance, right? That it's not something that is defined for you externally, it's something that you have to choose to be in. And it comes from it should be a source of self-love. That feels like what it's trying to get at. But I can definitely see, like, a lot of people feeling this sequence as a particular turnoff. And I can definitely see that there's a critique of this sequence as containing, like, transmisogynist imagery. Or being open and allowed for a transmisogynist interpretation. And it's like, that's sort of the space you always have to play in when you're playing in this kind of imagery. When you're being this specific and literal. I don't think there's a way to really avoid it without becoming really didactic. But this does feel like this would be the source of where some of the criticism that's not from the chuds is coming from. And I can see why. If it was such a hard to navigate imagery, then why didn't they opt for something else? I mean, yeah, and that's like, you can always make that critique, right? It's just, I don't know how you would do this kind of abstract imagery in a way that it's like, Utena kind of has some of these problems as well, right? Like, it's sort of the alternative to doing abstract imagery, which is very open to interpretation, is to have non-abstract imagery that is just, like, specific and prosaic, right? And that means just the ultimate expression of that is simply saying the point out loud with a lot of disclaimers so that nobody can misinterpret it. The trouble with art is that art is inherently open to misinterpretation. Right? Like, that is the nature of art, right? Like, look at the way that some people receive I Saw the TV Glow, right? A movie which I think could not possibly be any clearer about what it's saying on an artistic level, and yet observe the video essays. Of people either not getting it or refusing to get it. And it's a thing, like, that's sort of inherent to art itself, is that all art which is willing to be earnest and vulnerable is vulnerable to misinterpretation. And the more earnest and vulnerable you get, the more vulnerable to misinterpretation you get, right? Like, the more you reach into the poetic, the less you reach for the specific and prosaic, the more you open yourself up to misinterpretation. But the trouble is, poetry is also often where the most powerful art exists. That space of interpretation is where most people will be able to see themselves, right? That's where you make something that can reach beyond yourself. So it is, like, it's a catch-22, right? Like, if you make something that's very abstract, that's very artistic, that's very earnest, that tries to reach for the poetic, then You open yourself up to people not understanding it or bringing their own lens to it that you can't control. And the thing I'll say about this is, straight art does this all the time. Straight cis art does this all the time, and it fucks it up all the time, and it comes out and says dumb, stupid bullshit all the time. Every single day of every single moment of my entire life, this has happened. And 0.9% of the time do I wake up the next morning and find that like half of TikTok is exploding in a discourse war over whatever cisgender bullshit has said some dumb bullshit most recently. This kind of scrutiny is always leveraged at queer art. Anytime queer art is messy, anytime queer art is problematic, anytime queer art doesn't cover itself in disclaimers and spell out every little specific thing it means in excruciating detail, every single time queer art does this, this thing happens, right? Like every single time, that's when we get these fucking discourse mills. That's when you get the endless think pieces and the fucking videos and all that. Every single time, right? And an argument that some people make is that because queer identity, because queerness itself is so heavily under siege, right? Like there's multiple countries in the world, currently in the Western world, are attempting a trans genocide. That vagueness and non-specificity is not really a luxury that's available to queer art. Queer art has to guard itself against being misinterpreted and misused. It's an argument that people make. I don't agree with it because it puts queer art in a box and a straitjacket that straight art doesn't have to exist in. And I don't think it's fair to say to queer artists that they have to censor themselves, that they have to be so much more careful, that they have to be so much more conscientious, that they have to work so much harder only for whatever they make to be torn apart anyway by people who are overtuned and absolutely desperate to defend themselves from any appearance of being problematic from their own side. While straight and cis people can just do whatever the fuck they want and never be held to account for it. I don't think that's fair. I think there should be space in the world for messy, fucked up, problematic, imperfect, badly phrased, misinterpretable queer art. And there should be at least the same amount of grace for that there is for whenever Johnny Cis Guy makes another fucking police propaganda MCU movie, right? Fucking Spider-Man's latest movie is pretty explicitly pro-surveillance, pro-Palantir. Like, it feels like, in many places, like a fucking direct advertisement for the technology that ICE is using to do a soft genocide in the US right now. Don't see the discourse fucking blowing up into smithereens over this. It is always queer media. It's always feminine queer media, especially as someone says in chat. Like, if it's made by anyone who appears to not be a man, whether they're non-binary, whether they even are a woman, right? Like, whatever the fuck, so long as they're not like a man, oh boy, the axes come out. And they especially come out from the progressive left. Like, the progressive left is so willing to turn around and rip apart something mildly problematic with its heart in the right place. And it's frustrating. Like, we saw it with the Amazing Digital Circus, right? Like, this intensely personal examination of a trans woman's own, like, traumatic repression, where she tries to examine her own worst self in detail and puts that out as art, and she gets called, God, like, good lord, like, the shit that Gooseworks got called for making a really, like, for making an honest depiction of the uglier parts of being repressed. The uglier parts of being a traumatized, broken egg with no support network. And it's the same thing with fucking Steven Universe. And yeah, so again, there are definitely criticisms you can make of this movie, but I don't think there's a reasonable argument to make that this movie is being criticized on an equal level for the flaws that it does have. as any other art would be for having flaws of an equivalent level. Like, if this is the thing that the left is... I say the left as if that's a reasonable category. If this is the thing that, like, is generating sort of progressive discourse over it, it's like, that discourse is disproportionate. Not that none of it needs to exist, but maybe it doesn't need to be a big fucking deal. Maybe it's like a few Medium posts and some blog posts discussing the thing in a critical lens. Maybe it doesn't have to be fucking discourse du jour on TikTok and Instagram for like 2.5 weeks. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, hi, Hermes. Hermy Burmy. Hey, Sonic Spin. Don't step on the keyboard, baby. Don't step on the keyboard, baby. Not on the keyboard. Not on the keyboard. Well, it's an appropriate reaction to killing someone. Yeah, I can see also why people would have a problem with the drag queen being a villain in this way. Message. Hi, Apollo. Now you want to step on the keyboard. Don't step on the keyboard. Again, geez, it's accurate. It's accurate to the way that these motherfuckers talk. It's completely accurate to how they talk, but that doesn't make it particularly enjoyable to sit through. Like, this is fully how MRAs talk. Like, is that fucking Rush E? What? Very funny. Thespian. Yeah. You can cut now. You can cut. You can cut now. You can cut now. You can cut now. Just because they improv'd it doesn't mean you have to put it in. You can cut now. Yeah, editor. This movie needed editing. Oh, they could have cut that. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Ooh, Jesus Christ, Syra. I shouldn't have paused there. 3, 2, 1, pause. Oh, ho, 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 girl failure. Failure, girl. Failure, girl. Girl failure. God Christ. Hell on earth almighty. That was... How long was that? Let's see. When the fuck did that joke start? Started at 1:03 and 10 seconds. Fully, like, 3 minutes. At least, like, God, somewhere in the neighborhood of, like, 4.5, 5 minutes of just that fucking joke over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Holy shit. Oh my god. It is... If they'd gone for like 2 more minutes, I would have circled back and said, okay, it's funny that you were willing to take it so long and be so fucking annoying. Maybe. That wouldn't have made it good, but at least I would have been laughing. Oh, Christ, that was... Jeez, that was a lot. Oh my god. Again, editing. That's it. Editing. This movie is just barely under 90 minutes long. It could have been like 65 minutes. Like there's really a bunch of stuff that they could have cut and they would have had a much more tight product. Like a much more tight actual final film, which I think could genuinely have been quite strong. Like, in some places. I don't think it would improve the quality of a bunch of it, but the fact that they just got these 3 guys... Like, it sounds very much like they got these three guys in a recording booth and just kind of told them to vamp, right? Like, just fucking riff on a bit. And then once they had all of that, they were like, that we can't... Like, they were unwilling to cut it. They were unwilling to shred it down and, like, go, hang on, let's only take the best bits. And again, that's very authentic to webcomic, right? That's very authentic to, like, that style of media where it's self-indulgent, right? Like, I have a bit right now that's amusing me currently. I'm just gonna sit with it until I'm tired of it. And then, you know, how does the audience feel? Well. And it makes sense from the perspective... Like, again, first-time director, first-time animation team. difficulty killing your darlings is like normal, right? Like that's more expensive projects than this have had the same problem. And again, I think it is authentic to the kind of girl failure that Syra is. That, like, the moment she's confronted with something that requires her to have self-respect. No fighting, babies. Hello. Corner her. Apollo wants to play. Artemis does not want to play. And so he gets whacked over the nose, and he doesn't really understand what that means, so he keeps trying to play. Dipshit. It is pretty authentic to the kind of like, insecure person that Syra is. That, like, the moment she's confronted with something that requires her to have self-respect, right, like, requires her to say, I've made a choice for myself, she instantly folds, right? Apollo. Oh, you know. Oh, I can... Don't look at me like that. You know. Little jackass. Like, making a choice that requires you to have self-respect, that requires you to choose yourself, is very, very hard when you have this, like, void of insecurity. So that's, like, a very authentic failure on her part. And a really heartbreaking one for poor Willow, who has never given her any reason to mistreat her like that. 3, 2, 1, go. Again, Apollo. Apollo. Well, she shouldn't. Again, Kiki is a recognizable type. Yeah, no, earned. Apollo. Apollo. Boy. Is there gonna be a breakup in every act? We've got 1 and 2 crossed off. I mean, again, authentic to a certain kind of lesbian. Again, Jesus Christ. The background art sometimes just kind of goes off the fucking wall. Again, completely inconsistently, just randomly at times. Whoever's working on one specific set of backgrounds just fucking... Oh, of course. Right, yeah. Oh, Christ, really? Jesus. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Still hasn't learned her name. Oh, man. They put a little bit of Sakuga into that ship for some fucking reason. Honestly, like a hit direct to the nuts like that should have worked. Oh no! Oh, don't do that. Fucking doing a Star Wars trench run. Again, inconsistency, right? Like, what the fuck is this? Why is this here? That feels very like, we need an action set piece for Act 3. Okay, fair enough. I do like the little model. That's kind of funny. What? Again, it's that thing about killing your darlings, right? They clearly had the idea for that penis ship sequence, and they thought it was funny, and so they just kind of wanted to have it in there. They built the little miniature, right? So, and again, the joke is they don't listen to women. Yeah, fuck Kiki. Oh, come on. If you're going to do a Sailor Moon sequence, you got to do the whole thing. Oh, there we go. Good, good, good. I thought for a second they were going to end it there. Oh, bit of reused animation. Okay, you can cut now. 2, 1, joke. Okay, I like that joke. That's a good joke. That's a good joke. I do like that joke. I do like that. Like, the dude just says exact. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Fair enough. Yep. Sure. Why not? Gay white aliens, I suppose. It's nice that the ship has character growth. Yeah, that was mid in most ways. Like, in most ways, it was just kind of like, eh. It has some bad jokes, right? Like, it has some, like, homophobic men should just be gay with each other kind of. Yeah, sure, why not? It's like, it's very 1990s, 2000. Well, not 1990s. It's very 2000s. It's like very much a joke that you'd see on Tumblr in like the 2008 or fucking whatever. But like, it's literally not worth even 1/10 of all this fucking discourse. It's just a, like, it's a first time movie by a first time director and a small independent animation team. It feels a lot like if Oh, it's Jordan playing Queen Leanne. Cool. Um, I know that name. It feels very much like if this had been made like under slightly different circumstances, it would have been a sort of mid-performing web series on YouTube, independent web animation thing. It feels like if it had been made in the 2010s as like an independent web show or whatever, it would have been like a lot of people would have loved it. A lot of people would be like, yeah, it was kind of problematic, but it felt like authentic to my experience, and people would have liked it, and there wouldn't have been shit about it, right? Like it would have been important to the people who cared about it, and would probably not have exploded very much out of its bubble. It really just seems like because it showed up on Netflix, a bunch of grifters realized, oh, we can get some clicks out of shitting on this thing. And then a bunch of people decided to go along with it because, I mean, people just don't have a good filter for rage bait anymore, I guess. It's like, it has some parts that are shitty. Oh, hey, land acknowledgement. That's nice. It has some parts that are shitty. It has some shitty dated jokes. It has a lot of stuff that should have been cut in editing. But, like, it's not worth even 1/10 of all of this bullshit. It has some fun parts. Occasionally some really genuinely gorgeous background art. Like, really genuinely gorgeous background art. This is somehow worse than the pilot of Has Been Hotel. I think it's about that level. I think it's about the level of the Has Been Hotel pilot. It's certainly better than the pilot of Hell of a Boss. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, it feels like a first-time movie by a first-time director. That's what it feels like. It feels like someone's first-time effort when it's the first time they get to do a big project. And, like, I very much hope that this will open some doors for them. And that they get to keep making stuff, because it seems like they have the heart for it. It did win a lot of awards. Yeah, like, it did well in the festival circuit, right? Hi, Apollo. Please you can't be on the keyboard. Apollo, you cannot be on the keyboard. Oh my god. Okay. I'm holding my hand over the keyboard so he doesn't lay his head on the keyboard, so now he's laying his head on my hand and purring. Well, aren't you precious? Murder Drones kind of vibe. Yeah, it has the same inconsistency that Murder Drones had, especially in the early episodes. But I don't think it's like... Much as I suspected, this movie is just kind of fine for what it is and otherwise kind of mid. It doesn't really have a conclusion, right? Like, its conclusion is she learns to respect herself and moves on. And then shit gets better for her. She doesn't get, like, a girlfriend as a reward, right? Like, she fucks it up with Willow and that stays fucked up. And that's, like, yeah, that's honest. Right? She doesn't get to get back together with Willow. They don't really resolve the themes, especially. They don't really resolve the plot. It's a series of bits that are sort of loosely strung together with a personal development narrative. There's a lot of things that should have been kill your darling moments, like penis rocket over here, which comes from nowhere and doesn't seem to mean or do anything. It's just like, we wanted a set piece where one of the spaceships was a huge dick. Because dick joke. And it comes on things, and that's funny, and then... Ugh. And then it blows up. And it feels like it's because they had the model and they wanted to do the little miniature shot. And the miniature shot is great. I think a miniature shot is always funny. It's a visual gag I'm always going to appreciate, but it's the kind of thing like that's just, you should have just cut that whole scene because it doesn't do anything, right? And much of it is just like that. Bits that probably should have been cut, things that needed another pass in editing, sequences that don't really connect together at all. It really does feel like the part of the movie that the movie cares about is these sequences, right? What the movie is about, what the movie wants to examine, what it's interested in is these sort of psychedelic sequences trying to deal with what it means to learn to respect yourself, right? And cope with your failures and your cringe. And then everything that's built around that is largely a series of bits, right? The bit of there's a girl crying in the bathroom and you experience like a brief moment of connection and friendship. The bit of annoying guys refuse to stop explaining magic rules to you. The bit of, right, like it feels like it's a set of loosely strung together bits that sort of try to provide the scaffolding for some emotional storytelling. And that again is like, yeah, that's a lot of first efforts from filmmakers. That's a lot of first efforts from people doing webcomics. Like it's a normal level of amateur. It really isn't worth getting worked up over. It really, really, really isn't. Right? Like the drag queen person of color being a villain who wants to steal the embodiment of a girl's womanhood, essentially. Like that's like, yeah, you probably should have maybe thought about the optics of that. But it's like, that's it. Like you should have thought about the optics of that, right? Like that should maybe again have had another pass or two in editing. Maybe had a thing with like a sensitivity reader to give it a bit of critical pushback or something, but yeah, it's just fine. Honestly, I don't see what people are so worked up over.